right, tell us your name, what position are you running for, and why you chose to run?
Doug Brown, running for City Council. And I'm choosing to run because I love this city, I love the mountains, I love the outdoors activity. When I first got here with my wife 5 years ago, we were going downtown and the music scene was wonderful, the funky restaurants, just the whole ambiance of it. And then of course I found a wonderful tennis, community also. But because I love that so much, I've seen so many things change recently that I'm wondering what is going on and what can we do to change this? Because we've still got a great bunch of resources here, a great city, and you might call it a great team, but it just seems like the coaching isn't going as well when you see crime spike, homelessness go up, trash and so forth. So maybe we just need a new playbook here to keep the city going.
What specifically would you like to achieve during your time on City Council if elected?
The specific thing I'd like to see change is how homelessness is addressed at this point. I believe that the City Council, ever since 2005, has been working with the Housing First model. And back in 2005, they had a 10-year program to eradicate homelessness. Well, we know that hasn't happened. And part of the reason is, and if you look at a report called the United States Interagency Consortium on Homelessness, they did a report on what was going on with homelessness, why is it going on from 2014 to 2019, and they found that Housing First is kind of a one-shoe-fits-all, and it's not necessarily the best program for a city. 80% of the people out there that are going into homelessness are really mental health problems or drug abuse problems. So it's not a homeless issue. But if you treat it that way and you just want to put people in a house first and check them off the box, but they're not getting treatment for their drug abuse, they're not getting treatment for their mental health, they're being penalized if they work, they can lose their disability checks and so forth. This is creating more homelessness. And that report that I mentioned shows that from 2014 to 2019, that even though 40% more housing was allowed, and you'd think that would take care of the homeless, but the homelessness still grew 20%. So a better model is what our faith-based groups are doing right here in Asheville, and they're doing a wonderful job at it, and that is shelter first, treatment first, then housing earned. And that's a wonderful model, because you think if someone is in trouble, they need shelter, not just for a place to be, but shelter from bad influences. So that's where I would go first.
Well, that speaks to the next question, which was, what are your views on homelessness? But as a follow-up question, how do you feel that it has currently been handled, and what are 3 ways that you will tackle the issue of homelessness if elected?
Let's first reconsider our, I'm going to call it an addiction to federal funds, because when you work with federal funds come with strings, and you're required to follow their rules. How many of us would ask DC to run our school system? How many of us would ask DC to run our downtown business organizations? How many of us would ask DC to run our homeless situation here? And yet that's what we're doing. So I definitely wean ourselves off this federal money, which becomes an addiction. It's hard when you get millions of dollars. I think it's about $2 million a year we get. Each year, it supports agencies, it pays payroll, it does a lot of things, it hires caseworkers and all these things, but it means we become part of the system. That's one thing I would do to get rid of that. The second thing is I would allow policemen to do their job. We have ordinance in this city. Community is a two-way street. If you want to be part of community, you need to abide by certain ordinances, and these are rules that we've all decided we want to live by. Panhandling, vagrancies, these are rules that we said, no, this isn't acceptable. Sleeping in parks, no, this isn't acceptable. Leaving trash all over, this is not acceptable. So let's allow the police force, or if you wanted to call it our community agents or whatever reimagining has been done here, let's make sure that these people get the right services they need. So if you find someone who's a vagrant or panhandling, is find out what homeless shelter are you with. If you're not with a homeless shelter, let's get you with a homeless shelter. Let's get you the work you need. And if you don't want that, Well, then let's get you a bus ticket out of town or something else, or if you want to get cited, we can put you in jail for a little while and you can do community service 8 hours a day until you're tired of that and move on. But we have to be compassionate with these people and not let them continue in their addictions and their mental health problems untreated. We have to see that they get this work done that they need to have done. That's the most compassionate thing to do. Just let them sit in a safer place to destroy themselves with drugs or mental health is not a solution.
So specifically on that same note, what are your thoughts on low barrier shelters, camping, panhandling, and the needle program, and how would you move forward on those issues if elected?
The low barrier shelters is something that the city council has already seen. We don't want that. They saw that at Ramada Inn. Does anyone need a reminder of what that looks like? Absolute disaster. And so as the city moves forward with Days Inn and Ramada Inn, they're not following, from my understanding, what I've been told, the low barrier model anymore. They're saying, well, these people need to qualify. We're going to assign caseworkers. They've completely redone that. So I think that's answered its own question, that just giving people, let anybody come in, including the drug dealers and the prostitutes and all that, is not a solution. And our city doesn't want to go through that again. The needle program, I understand the need for clean needles, but if it's not monitored and it becomes just a dispensary, we need to change that. And I believe it has to go through sort of a legislation to do that. But that step needs to be taken, because otherwise we're just enabling people. I was just talking to Rescue Mission the other day, and he said, well, ever since they had the needle program, overdoses have gone up 3 times. And so to solve that, what they said, let's give everybody a buddy system, and they get, I think it's called can or something, that you can spray up to someone's nose just before they overdose so that they don't overdose. So what they do is they get their buddies and they take their, get their trip as high as they can go, and just before they overdose, their buddy sprays them on the nose and saves them. And then he says, okay, now it's my turn. You do it to me. So we're enabling people. We need to take a more compassionate, would you do that with your children? If your child was having a drug addiction problem, would you just continue to give them needles, even if they're clean? Or then just say, hey, we'll just stand by you, and when you just come to the point of overdosing, we're just gonna spray something up your nose? You wouldn't do that with your own child. Why do that to our citizens in our town? That's not compassionate.
Would you reconsider some of the current grants to nonprofits that have no accountability, for example, the needle program?
Would I consider
Reconsidering.
So, of course I would reconsider the needle program. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest issue Asheville City and Buncombe County, and even as specifically as local neighborhoods, are facing today, and how will you tackle those issues during your time if elected?
One of the biggest issues is our police force. Let me ask you, when you were in school and the teacher stepped out, or if a substitute came in, did you do the same amount of work, or did you have the same behavior?
Definitely not.
Okay, if you were on a soccer team and your coach decided to step out while you're running lines, were you running your lines as fast as you?
Definitely not.
It's the same way in our city. If we don't have a police force here as a presence, people will take advantage of it. I'm sorry to say, but that is a situation we need to address. And even though maybe not all of us are facing crime, it is eroding our city's appeal to visitors, to residents, and we need to address that.
One of the biggest problems in the city is that the communities are often left out of big decisions and conversations. This will be 3 questions. Will you listen to all of the concerns from all constituents, even the ones who may not share your same beliefs on how to make Asheville a place for everyone? And how do you plan to involve residents and communities in the decision-making process in our town? Would you be willing to hold quarterly meetings on a rotating basis in the neighborhoods?
I don't know how you can think you know all the answers to everything, and input from all sides is so helpful. I think one of the ways to do that is to have, and I don't think quarterly meetings is enough. I would say probably monthly, and maybe even to start with, maybe even go every week or every 2 weeks, you need to get the information in. My background is in sales. As a salesperson, my manager always told me, Doug, you treat the customer right and the right things are going to follow. And it's no different really, I think, as a public servant. Is your customer is the public. You're here to serve them, you're here to meet their needs, you're here to solve their problems. And the best way to do that is to listen to what their needs are, and to, just like maybe you've got two different products, you might say, here's why this one's good, here's why this one isn't good, and give them different perspectives that maybe they haven't seen before. But you have to hear where everyone's coming from, and if you have a reasonable response, trust that reason's gonna respond to them.
One of the biggest issues affecting downtown residents, visitors, and small businesses is transients sleeping and camping in Pritchard Park on sidewalks and business entryways. What is the solution to the transient population, and what can be done to clean up and increase safety specifically in downtown? This is speaking to transients aside from our local homeless who live in Buncombe County.
Right. I think if I was a transient, I'd want to come to Asheville too. The mountain views are beautiful, and there's people that feed you all the time. And I understand there is an app, maybe it's called Travelers or something, where people actually log on and find out what cities are being very amenable to transients and so forth. I hear Asheville's got high standings there. But I think maybe, what are the solutions? I'm not in city council yet, I have a lot to learn. Perhaps as people come in on buses, we can just check and see who they are. If we have the manpower already there, I wouldn't suggest hiring anybody new for that. But again, it comes back to policing. I think the police know who is local here and who is new, and they can then approach these people and say, where are you? What are your services that you need? And this is all civil and just common sense. And if they aren't really staying any place and just camping out and just enjoying Asheville, we want you to enjoy Asheville, but not sleep in our parks or become an activist in a way that's going to disrupt our community. Again, community is a two-way street. You want to be here, you need to be part of it and contribute.
I already know the answer to this question based off what you've already said, but just to get it on the record, do you agree with defunding the police?
No, defunding the police, look at the cities that have defunded police. They've reversed their position. So do we need to make the same mistakes they have and go farther down that rabbit hole? And the same answer would go with our housing situation, housing first. Look at the cities that have adopted housing first: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. Those are canaries in the coal mine. Do we want Asheville to look like that in 5 more years? No.
What are your strategies for reducing the exceedingly high crime rates in Asheville and Buncombe County, considering we're rated in the top 10% most violent cities in America?
If criminals or crime is committed and people aren't punished or corrected or shown that, or given the idea that this cannot continue, we're setting a wrong precedent. You have to why not just enforce the laws that are there and let the police do their jobs, and of course have a district attorney that will prosecute.
There are many community members who would like transparency regarding how nonprofits spend the taxpayer-funded grants. Would you support nonprofits being required to open their books by line item to the taxpayers? Why or why not?
Yeah, amen. Let's be transparent. Ask them why or why not would you not share your information?
Okay. Do you agree that boards and commissions would be better off being reduced, or do you see value in those groups as they are?
The way I understand that situation is we have maybe 22 commissions and we're trying to funnel it down to 4 or 5. That doesn't seem like you're going to get the real representation. It just, the more it gets filtered, we've all played the game secret, you whisper in someone's ear and it comes around. That does not seem to be effective to me. And if the city council or the people that are hearing these boards feel that that is too much for them to hear from 20 different boards rather than 4, maybe they're in the wrong business. We need to hear not just from 20 boards, but we need to hear from individuals and communities. And that's your job. If it's too much, find something else to do.
Asheville is the city with the highest cost of living in North Carolina. What do you think drives the high prices, and should this be addressed, and how?
Boy, no doubt it should be addressed. How, how long has it been going on here, and is there been a solution yet? So how, what's going to solve it? From my understanding is, and this is definitely a prime thing that needs to be handled in our city, but we know that we have a large tourist draw to our city. We know that that's healthy, that 75% of the income that visitors spend here is on restaurants and breweries and entertainment and so forth. 25% goes to the hotels business. So that's great. It creates a lot of jobs in restaurants, hotels, and entertainment and so forth. But these are jobs that are not the highest paying jobs. These are resort jobs, you might say. And it's difficult, even if you're at $15, $16, $17 an hour, to afford rents here. I understand that Asheville, years ago, used to have some major international corporations here. I understand we have some coming here now, Raytheon and Pratt Whitney. But if you look at how beautiful this city is and what it has to offer and all these restaurants and the fun outdoor activities, I can't imagine that a software company or other high-tech companies wouldn't be interested in relocating here. If that happens, we have people with, first of all, we offer more jobs, higher paying jobs, higher skilled jobs. That would also allow people to afford some of the prices we have here. I'm sorry, it's expensive here. But if we're not building here and we make building codes, this is a different part, but make building codes very difficult for contractors I've spoken to. I've even spoken to some say we won't even build in Asheville or Buncombe County because of the hassles it is here. That limited housing means housing prices go up. That beside, let's say we could have those higher paying jobs, get more people here. If we could build more houses, create our tax base. From there, once we have that responsible market value housing established, we can build up our tax base that can then support affordable housing and fund that sort of thing. And perhaps we can work with the downtown business organizations, the hotels and restaurants and so forth. If there are warehouses or if is there some land available for developing, maybe we can work with them and partner with them and let them build or own the hotels, and they can work out a flexible wage and rent program between themselves. You know, these are just things we can do and explore. But yes, we have to handle the affordable housing problem. It's not going to happen just by putting money in, because that increases taxes. So we have to increase our tax base. We have to make regulations easier to work with so that builders can build in a responsible way without, tearing down our beautiful views.
All right, so we're going to finish on a final thought. Anything you want to tell the voters and what they should know?
Maybe a little bit about me, that I'm Doug Brown. I've worked as a sales representative over in Japan for 14 years. I was hired there because I was someone that was energetic, had ideas, and could get things done. Then the territory expanded to the Middle East, and so I opened up that territory. Then I found that there was a product line that this international company didn't have, that the customers needed, and so I just took the initiative to start that business and get that going. I like to think of myself as a person that finds solutions. I love working with people. I'd love to be in a position where people would tell me, what your thoughts are. Part of the things that's energized me in this campaign is being able to go out and talk to people and find out what they're looking for, and to think maybe I could be part of the agent to help that happen, so that people could get back to business, get back to their hobbies, get back to their families and their churches or whatever they want, and not worry about what the government's doing. Know that the government's supporting them, and they can go on thinking about the things that they should be thinking about, and not wondering if the government's going to enforce rules or something.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.